Hello and welcome to the CRM Zen Show, where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 115. Why? Why not? Recorded on October 9th, 2020. From Zenatta Consulting, I'm Brett Martin.
And I'm Tyler Colt. And let's get right on into the show.
Yeah, so a little change there. Used to be let's get right on into the news, but we're going to kind of mix things up a little here a little bit. You may have all noticed we changed up the newsletter last week. We had a graphical version of the newsletter and we kind of went back to the text version. We found that readership kind of dropped off, and there were a lot of things we want to get out of the newsletter, like announcements and things. So we're actually changing the show up a little bit. Before we get to the news, we want to talk about some like quick links and announcements. Really some cool stuff. I'm really proud of what we've got going on. So we'll start off with the CRM Zen website. I think we mentioned it briefly last week, but CRM Zen has its own property now. And what we're doing is we're basically aggregating everything you're going to hear on the show today. We've been posting up over here in a news section. So basically all of the stories as I find them during the day, we're just doing quick little link posts. So you basically can go in and, it's just a quick summary of the article, and then you can kind of click in and go over and look at the article itself. But I think one of the coolest things we've added in this week is our new events calendar. So we are constantly looking, since we're looking for news every single day and following all the Zoho, feeds and communities and their Twitter feed and their LinkedIn feed, we're constantly picking up on, hey, there's this webinar, there's this event, there's this meetup, there's these kind of things going on. So we've put that all in one calendar. So if you want to find kind of the single place to go to find every single thing, every event that's happening in the world of Zoho, we've got it under the events section at CRM Zen. And also our store is up. So, hey, if you want some cool CRM Zen swag, you can go over there and get it. My personal favorite is this new CRM Zen AF t-shirt where we've got the A and the F are little Zoho blocks. Anyway, it cracks me up. And so
that one was just for Brett. He's going to order 10 of those for himself.
Yeah, I did design it. I'm happy about that to say, but it was pretty cool across the board. So I'm pretty happy about that. And then our upcoming webinar is in fact coming up here at the end of this month. So this one's going to be on Zoho Books. That's what everybody voted for. That's what we're going to do it on. So we looking forward to everybody joining us for that webinar. And the registration link will be in the newsletter as well. So some pretty good stuff. All right. And now, Tyler, let's get right on into the news. And man, I am never going to complain about it being a slow Zoho news week again. So much. So we'll just go right to it. Zoho Backstage, this is the September roundup. I think we covered most of this stuff, Tyler.
I think most of this we kind of did touch on, right? Being able to do specific permissions on your pages so that different, ticket holders can see different information. They do talk a little bit here about some smart buttons, that you can basically have different buttons that'll route people to different places, a little more customization just in exactly what you can do, in the little microsite builder to be able to customize some buttons on the page. But all in all, probably all updates that we have covered here over the past, month or so.
Yeah, and then Zoho Bookings got some Zapier integration. So this is kind of neat. Zoho Bookings, we actually we did a little bit of testing, and it seems like maybe they have the calendar issue fixed. Do you think that's the case?
Yeah, so I actually booked with someone using Zoho Bookings. Historically, there's always been an issue with things actually getting added to calendars, right? So back in the day when you would book with someone, they would just get emailed an ICS file, which without getting that actual event onto someone's Google Calendar, Outlook calendar, it's, people just aren't going to remember. And there was always kind of an issue with time zones. If you had someone booking from outside of your primary time zone, oftentimes you'd have little hiccups there. But I did go ahead and book, using Zoho Bookings, and it was able to get that onto my calendar. It came in at the right time zone, even though I know that who I was booking with was in a different one. So overall, pretty good. List of some of these new Zapier integrations, which are always nice to have. Zapier just being such a unifying tool, right? That you can connect so
Yeah.
many different applications together. One of the big ones here is, of course, the ability to create Zoom meetings and actually apply those onto your Zoho bookings appointments. I know Zoho is still working on a native integration, but it sounds like they rolled that out just to
Yep.
kind of satiate people in the meantime while they finish that up.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, Zoho Bookings is an application that allows you to send a link to somebody. They click on it, they can view your calendar, see your open times, directly book with you. And it's kind of been on our no list for a long time, but I think we're gonna have to move it up to the maybe and even try it out. I would love it. We use Calendly internally. Be great to use this to get it going, and it looks like it's closer and closer. And like they say, with the Zapier integration, we pick up a lot of potential integrations out of this. So little not the perfect methodology, but I don't think a bad one. Hey, and then analytics, man. We got an October roundup. So what do you think?
Yeah, so a couple nice updates here. They're giving people the ability to kind of change around some axes dynamically, which is pretty slick. So a big use case of this would be, let's say on your x-axis of a bar chart, you have the something like a closing rate of your deals. You're able to basically click in and change that to be, week over week, month over month, year over year, just dynamically. You can also change it to completely different values. So I could change it from the closing date to the industry to look at my revenue a couple different ways. So nice kind of on the fly ways to slice and dice the data. They have one here that I am more excited about than I should be. This is a ability to set alternate text for URLs when you have URLs inside of a pivot table or a summary table. So they've had this for a while if you are looking at either the raw data or just a very simple tabular report where you could actually rename it. So what this means is, let's say I have a custom link that goes to a deal record in the CRM. In the raw data, I could have that link display as, click here to see this in the CRM. But the minute I pull that into a report, it's going to show the actual raw text of the URL. They're basically allowing us now to actually customize those link names when they're in reports, which is just way easier because when you have custom links where you're going to apply a lot of parameters, they get really long and unwieldy. So being able to say, a link that says view in CRM is much better than a 300 character customized URL that you're trying to jam into a little, column in a report. So really nice little update there. And then last but not least, they've added a set of additional connectors using the data bridge. So a couple ones there, Microsoft Access, SAP, HANA, HANA, Hive, SQLite, handful of new connectors there, using the data bridge.
Yeah, and they're also supporting a spatial data import. So you can now import spatial data like from geomaps and analyze that data in detail, which I think is pretty interesting as well. So not that we have a lot of need or call for that, but
you'd probably want to put
nice.
your GPS data in there if they'd ever let you.
I know, man.
And even taking that truck all over the place. It'd be cool to visualize some of that.
Drop the off-roading data in there and see what we can come up with. All right, and then moving on. So Zoho Social, they did some stuff with image sharing here, which is kind of nice. So they've upgraded it, so you can now choose up to 4 images for LinkedIn. Your sharing's a little better. You could. They've always had it's been difficult working with images in Zoho Social. You usually have one. You can't size it. You can't do a lot with it. And, if you want to centrally publish from Zoho Social, you've been a tad bit limited. But now this is pretty nice. Now they've kind of done a whole, reworking of how they're handling images and how you can share them. So both LinkedIn company pages and LinkedIn personal profiles and Instagram. It's just a nifty little update, as well as, of course, Facebook. So kind of a much needed improvement to Zoho Social, and I'm glad they rolled this out.
Yeah, definitely nice to have, given how important proper images and being able to get those out are for the effectiveness of your media campaigns.
Yes, and then on the strange anniversary category, Zoho Flow is now 1,000 days old, So, that's in the last 1,000 days of Zoho Flow, evidently there are over 500 apps and 1,000 pre-built apps. Now, I calculated this out. If I was to start celebrating my 1,000-day-old birthday, I missed my 21,000-day birthday back in April, and so I've got to wait another 4 years to get to 3 years to the 22,000 one. I don't know, but
A little too much time on your hands there, Brett.
so I don't know. It just also it ages me right there. Anyway, it's nice that, it's glad they've done this. I have to tell you though, internally, Flow just keeps dying all over itself, and we're having just all sorts of issues with it.
A couple interesting updates that they did roll out here around the management tools inside of Zoho Flow. So they finally added versioning, which is so desperately needed. So that's awesome to have. Basically, every time that you make a change, it's going to create a new version for you. You're able to roll back or move forward to the different versions. Another one that they added, which is excellent, but I think they'll need to make some tweaks, is the ability to rerun failed tasks. So this is one that people have been begging for a while. And this is basically the use case where, every now and then you might have a, push of data into Flow that might look a little different than the tool is used to, and it'll cause a failure, right? Where it's not able to, create the record properly. Maybe it's a date format or something that's, giving it pause. And now you're basically able to go through and rerun those tasks, which is awesome, right? Because I can jump in, I can identify in the history what went wrong, I can update the flow, and then I can rerun the task.
Or you can do auto rerun right now.
Or you can do auto rerun.
Up to 8 times it says it'll attempt that.
But one of the interesting things about this task rerun is that it will rerun it in the version of the flow that was in place when it failed. It doesn't run it in the newest version of the flow. So if your flow is failing because you have a custom function in it, then it will run the new version of the custom function because that's just one of the actions in the flow. But let's say it was failing because I was trying to use a Zoho flow action, like fetching a contact or fetching an account, and maybe I remove that step. It will still try to do that step every time. So rerunning it will get it fixed for you if it's an issue in a function that you resolve. But if it's a problem with the actual steps in the flow, it will not ever actually be able to run an update to that new version. I don't think that this is the intended functionality, so I would expect to get an update on that, because basically you're doomed to fail every time that you rerun it if it's not rerunning on the new version. So I would assume that we'll probably be having an update on this over the next couple of weeks. But really, really nice function once it's running properly on the new version, because sometimes with Flow, you might not catch an error until 3 of them have failed out, and just being able to say, rerun these 3, I fixed it now, right? That's super, super useful. I think they'll get that issue resolved about the versioning.
For me though, I think most people are running flows. They expect the flows to run instantly. And we're just having all kinds of trouble with that.
Yeah, we've been seeing some delays.
Big delays.
Specifically with the subscriptions connector. And the interesting thing is that I can go into subscriptions, and we'll talk about this later, a little teaser. We run a couple automations on renewal of a subscription, and we used to run them through Zoho Flow until a couple days ago. We started seeing some delays where, a subscription would renew at 6:15 a.m. and we would check at 10 a.m. and it had never triggered the flow. The interesting thing is, if I would go into the timeline of the subscription record, I could actually see that it did send the data to Flow at 6:15. So on the subscriptions end, the trigger was working just fine by all, any way that I could check it. But Flow was just never really registering that update. We still do love using Flow, but we're starting to look more and more, when we can go directly via Deluge, to probably go that way. So for things that are all inside of Zoho, generally you can do the same actions just in a script. But it would be nice to kind of be able to, trust it maybe a little bit more and, kind of rely on it. I have seen most of the time things are instant, but, when it comes to things around billing or accounting, you have to know and be able to audit at any time and have everything be accurate.
Yeah, and to me, it's just one of those things. It has the ability, you have the ability to set delays in flow and all of these kind of things. But if it's not firing off instantaneously, all that's meaningless. And anyway, at least we were able to completely rework that thing using custom functions, because as we'll talk about a little later, it's kind of nice. Hey, and then moving on, 10 new Cliq integrations to simplify your workflow. This is nice. They're Zoho Cliq. We talk about it over and over again. They just grow and grow, and so this is a pretty good one. They've got OneDrive and GoToMeeting, Twitter. Those are kind of the big ones in here. COVID-19 bot, that's been around a while. We actually talked about that a while ago. Pipedrive, which I think is really interesting. Anyway, just some nice more little bots and things that you can just go ahead and drop directly into Cliq, Todoist as well. So good stuff.
And more, I think, as they build out that whole kind of widgets tool, right, you're going to see a lot of these types of things dropping in there. It's absolutely a great application, one that we couldn't live without most days.
Yeah, but what disturbs my ADHD here is the fact that it's 10 new Cliq integrations to simplify your workflow, and the graphic only has 7. So I don't know which 3 were left out, but it didn't work for me. So, if you're going to make a little graphic image to go in your blog, I mean, come on, give everybody some love here, because that was a tough one. All right. And then moving on with yet more news. Guess what? We can talk about it, Tyler. We've had this beta version of Zoho Projects 7 for quite a while. Actually, not quite a while. Would you say a week and a half?
Yeah, about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks.
Yep. And we're loving it. So now we can kind of talk about it. So Zoho, they did a post over in the community about 7 features to look out for in Zoho Project 7. So I guess we're out of our NDA and can now talk about Zoho Project 7. So this is pretty cool. You've been playing with it for quite a bit, because we're actually moving a whole bunch of things over to it. What are your thoughts?
I like it. So, I mean, Zoho Projects, of course, kind of follows the cascade or waterfall project management, right? So you're going to have milestones. Underneath those, you're going to have task lists. And underneath those, you're going to have tasks. Previously, the way that Zoho had set up projects from a UI perspective, it was kind of going to encourage you to go into each individual project and work there, right? So if I want to see my tasks, I'd kind of jump from project to project and kind of work on it that way. Now, you could pull a list of all of your tasks, but it was a couple menus deep to see that. And it kind of felt like, the way that the UI is set up is going to influence how you use it. And the way it was set up was kind of influencing you towards looking at a specific project. They've kind of re-geared it to be more focused on what they're calling a single page layout. So it's going to look a lot more like a Todoist or like an Asana, with kind of the left column being all the different places that you may want to go. Primary thing that I really like about it is that unified task list just looks a lot nicer now. It's a lot more intuitive to use. So when I have a developer maybe working on 10 different projects, they can just kind of live on one page and see all the different things sorted by due date, how long we're expecting it to take, what the priorities are. So kind of nice to just consolidate things a little bit more onto, that single page layout. Additionally, on kind of common theme on the show, they have released dark mode for it, which I think looks really nice. Kind of a big one if you're going to be staring at the screen all day, and was always kind of surprisingly missing from projects historically. And they've also added a little section they're calling the portfolio, which is kind of a top-down view of all the different activities in your projects. Again, a lot of the times I'm going to advise moving this over to Zoho Analytics. Projects is, the data structure is formatted perfectly just to build your own reports over there. They've worked a lot as well on resource utilization and how to track that. I will say I'm seeing some kind of feedback from partners. I would expect some more updates there on some of the resource utilization tracking. So if you do have bigger teams, something to be on the lookout for is, basically how many hours everyone's getting. Is everyone scheduled to work the amount of hours that they like to work week over week? But yes, overall, tons of nice updates there.
It's pretty too.
Yeah, very pretty.
It really
They've kind of brought
does.
in Cliq directly in there into kind of a discuss section. So, I mean, lots of nice updates. I think it brings it a lot more in line with a lot of the test management tools that we see our clients choosing to use, which are Asana and Todoist. And, at the end of the day, like all these apps do essentially the same thing. You have things that need to be done by people, they need to be done by a certain date, and they relate to a certain client or a certain project. So it's really all about UI. And I think that this is a really big improvement for Zoho in that regard.
Yeah, good. Very, very, very nice. And now my favorite bit of news for the week. You can now do many-to-many associations between records within the same module. So you can be in your contact module and say, I want to do a multi-click lookup, and you can do it to contacts itself. So man, oh man, this is something that I don't know how many shades of workarounds we've done around this, but it's kind of nice. I just think it's great to be able to do this now. Have you played around with this at all since they pulled it out?
No, I've not had the chance to really dig in and play with it. It is nice. They kind of use an example here of like if you had a module for employees, you might want to have kind of a lookup of managers and subordinates, right? Kind of linking back and forth between those same modules. Um, I can definitely see a lot of use cases where this will come in handy.
Yeah, I mean, nice. All righty, and then there's yet another page of news. So we also have, it's the beginning of October. So they're a little slow, believe it or not. I can't believe it's the 9th. We've only got 2 of the financial rundowns out. Not all, there's a lot here. I think the cool one that I really like out of this is that you can now, people can sign estimates using a public link. So this is really kind of cool. So you can basically send them an estimate. They no longer have to have portal login. They don't have to create a login. They don't have to do any of that. They can just do it, click the link, sign it, and accept the estimate. That's been missing for a very, very long time. So that's both in invoices and in books. But there's some other stuff around. You can just a whole bunch of little updates. I just recommend you read. I don't know. Was there anything else other than that that kind of jumped out as you
No,
was
I
like,
think
wow, that's
I
cool?
think that's the big one for me. I mean, previously, like you kind of mentioned, they did roll out this sign integration. We got really, really excited until we read the line that people would have to log into the portal to do it. Right. A lot of the time, if you have a customer, you don't want to add any barriers between them and saying yes to your estimate. And
Yep.
if you're requiring that they make a login, open up the estimate, then sign the estimate, it's a lot more steps than just clicking on the email and saying sign. So the ability to just actually have them sign directly on the estimate without having portal access is just a huge usability upgrade for that, because it is a nice functionality, but if it's locked behind a login, you're just going to have, some percentage of people that just aren't going to, follow through with doing that.
Yeah, no, it's great. And there was one other thing I want to point out: template specific addresses. So in your template in Zoho Books, you can now have a specific address associated with that template. And that's kind of a big deal because in the past, it was basically one address, one organization. That's it. Um, you'd have to kind of hard code some things, but in this case, you can do some nice things around that. So I think that'll be big too, and I want to play with that and see what that is all about. And then last but not least, 20. I counted this. Zoho meeting had some updates and bug fixes, and this is a really, really, really long post, but um, yeah, this is just goes on and on. So online meeting updates, just a whole ton of things for that. Webinar updates, 26 all in all. There's really nothing here. These are mostly just straight up bug fixes. Um, in reading through all of it, though, there was nothing about, uh, recording
Recordings.
quality. Yeah, nothing about recording quality being fixed or any of that. They fixed I mean, it's a ton of things. We won't bore you with it, but it's a lot. So there's a link here. You can go through it. Zoho meetings, we still can't recommend it, mostly because of dropouts and all sorts of other issues, audio quality issues. and then if you want to record the meeting, it's virtually unwatchable if you do make a recording of it. So I hope they get this fixed because the product's getting better and better and better, and we can at least see that the team's constantly working on it. So that's a good thing. The other, I think everything else is strictly getting down to server bandwidth, right? Maybe think about moving Zoho meetings off of Zoho servers, throwing it up on AWS or something. I know that goes against everything Zoho does, but they were scheduled to build out so many data centers this year, and because of COVID, that's kind of slowed things down. It's probably the worst possible time because now everything's boomed because of COVID, especially all the remote working tools. But they definitely need to get those data centers back up to speed here. All righty, and now mobile news. Not a whole lot here. We talked a lot about iPhone updates last week. So iOS 14 came out with widgets and all sorts of other things. So now Zoho Desk got the full iOS 14 experience, which is kind of cool. And there's a lot you can do with it using Siri shortcuts and all sorts of things. So if you haven't played around with that, I think, was it last week we kind of there was a real in-depth tutorial on how to set all these things up. It's pretty much the same for every application across the board. Yeah. And then this is kind of cool. So you got a completely revamped analytics module in the latest version of Zoho CRM. Now, this is not analytics. This used to be called, I don't know.
Dashboards. Used to be called dashboards.
Dashboards.
It's funny because they know that it's confusing because in this article, they say analytics in parentheses, dashboards.
Yeah.
So even they're pretty aware that this is a confusing name that they've chosen.
I don't really get it. It's kind of like in the CRM, they really need to not drop analytics. They should call it dashboards, and they need to drop campaigns because it's not campaigns, even though it is, right? Because there's too much many naming issues. Although I guess with campaigns, it actually does tie into the campaigns module, so maybe leave that one. But anyway. All that being said, only on the Android version. I don't think we have this yet on the iOS version, but you get a whole bunch of new dashboards. And it's pretty much a lot of the new dashboards that have been added into the desktop version. So pretty cool stuff. Other than that, anything to add to that, or should we?
No, I think one of the big things too, this does include all of their new and shiny different types of components that you can bring. So if you have any of those new cohorts or quadrant analyses, those will be able to pull directly in to the mobile version.
And that brings us to our implementation of the week. So we touched on this earlier in the show. What do we got?
And so this is one that we actually have implemented for ourselves as well as for a client. And it basically is a way to track different subscription revenue activities against Zoho CRM deals. So it's kind of for the use case where, you might be selling a product, right? And you want to work that product through your deal flow as you're selling it, right? So you're going to move it stage to stage. And then eventually once it's sold, you'll get that subscription sign up. And one of the challenges with that is that you may still want to be able to report on that revenue month over month through the CRM. But using the standard deal structure, right, you'd have one closing date and one amount, right? So you wouldn't really be able to see month over month what this revenue is. And so basically what we have is a little function that we run inside of subscriptions where each time that a subscription is renewed, that function goes ahead and searches the CRM to find, the matching deal. A lot of the times what we do is actually drop the subscription ID into the deal when it's, closed won so that you have that parameter to go ahead and find it. Once it finds that deal, it basically will create a little payment record. We have this as a deal layout. So it's basically a little child deal underneath your original deal to represent the payment or revenue recorded month over month for that subscription. Again, the key thing here is that it allows for visibility and reporting in the CRM based on subscription revenue. So, maybe 80% of your deals are just, we're selling $5,000 of product all right now, and 20% are on a subscription. This basically allows you to run aggregate reports on all of your deals and see your subscription revenue right in line with your, standard sales revenue. This also kind of allows us to do a little bit of tracking and kind of credit management in the CRM. So internally for us, this is used for our different support packages. So we have a health check where you get 2 hours a month, and then we have a 5 and a 10-hour support package that run on subscriptions. And this automation basically allows us to add to the hours on file each time that the subscription hits. So anytime you look at your subscription, if it's a 5-hour month subscription that's been running for 6 months, then it'll have 30 hours, and once that 7th subscription renewal happens, it'll bump itself up to 35. So it's able to do a couple different things for us, all kind of just in one little script running over in subscriptions.
Yeah, it's really it's fantastic. And then we have another script that runs so that when you we call it an hour logs module, and when you click on that, you book the work you've done. Here's the date, here's what it was, here's what I did, here's how much time I spent. It automatically decrements those hours. So it's kind of nice. And you mentioned another client. We have a client that has a salon where they do teeth whitening and tanning, and people can buy subscriptions, and they buy subscriptions, and it allows them to have, one teeth whitening a month or whatever, and they roll over. So it's, again, as soon as that payment hits, that credit hits their account. So when they bring up that record in the CRM, they can see, yes, this person is eligible for one teeth whitening. It's hit, or maybe they've got 2 or 3 that have stacked up. Same thing, a little more complicated around the tanning side. People are buying packages of 4 spray tans, and so those 4 spray tans go ahead and they get credited, and as they use those spray tans, it decrements down. So it's a really great way to kind of keep track of your subscription. And like you say, I think the revenue reporting on this is just super cool as well, to look at the month over month and add it in. And and the way it's been set up with kind of a master deal with then child deals underneath it, it keeps it super clean. So we've had a lot of clients talk to us about this, and we've tried to figure out ways to potentially turn this into maybe a marketplace app, but it's just so custom for every single person. I don't know if it's possible, Tyler.
A lot of different rules at play. How many things are able to roll up, right? What are those counts? There's a lot of variability there.
Yeah, too much so. But anyway, great solution. Reach out to us if you are interested in it. And let's talk about some things we noticed. More than I have on the screen here if you're watching the YouTube, but a whole bunch of little teeny tiny graphical tweaks to Zoho CRM hit this week, and really with no announcements, but they're kind of cleaning things up. The one I'm kind of showing here is on related lists. They really highlight out the how many records are in each related list. And then I really like the way that they've taken the buttons now for the kind of for tasks and meetings and calls, and to assign things. And they've also added some color across the board, which I think gives it a little more clarity, a little more contrast. But all in all, a pretty nice just little cosmetic tweak, I would say.
Yeah, and they kind of rolled out the way the buttons look kind of across the board. They're going with more of the kind of modern rounded button press rather than just the word. So previously it would just say plus task. It wouldn't actually be demarked by like the little button outline. I think one of the big things when you're highlighting the color on the related lists, that it kind of calls you to those. It's something that we see all the time where people are scrolling in records. So if you're in a deal and you want to get to the Zoho finance section to see your invoice, people scroll all the way down just because it's not readily apparent or clear that you can just click on that button on the left-hand side and it'll just drop you right down to that page. And, I can't tell you how many times I've shown someone that and they're like, wow, I didn't know that. And it's because if you don't design things in a way that make it clear, right, that you can click those, you're not going to do it. It's like the recent items button. It's so small and tiny in the corner that it's just easy to not even see and know that it's there. So I like these changes because they call a little bit more attention to that related list section, which is really the best way to get around the records in the CRM.
Yeah, and they also standardized on a lot of things. So, when you're looking at a related list, you can choose what columns you want to display on that related list. And it's really kind of nice now. Normally, so for example, if you're in kind of a list view in a module, it's more of a little square box that makes sense. And it used to be when you were just inside of a record is kind of a little drop down arrow, right? And now they've kind of standardized a lot of the iconography internally. It's just getting closer and closer. I'm hoping, I think this is just us moving towards that entire canvas viewability for everything. And there's just a lot of little cleanup going on here. I'm pretty happy about it though. Pretty good stuff.
Definitely more steps in the right direction.
Yeah. All right, and then this week's read comes to us from HubSpot. Allie Decker, we always like her stuff. She writes some really nice articles, and this one is how to implement and succeed with marketing automation. It does have a HubSpot slant to it, but that being put aside, I think if you kind of go through it and just look at the basis of it, it's really good. It kind of takes you through all of the things you want to do in marketing automation, what it is, how to set it up. Your basic kind of takes you through the types, which is important, right? Email marketing automation. We all know about that. And if you've worked with Zoho campaigns or Zoho Marketing Hub, you know that kind of Zoho really has that nailed in spades, and how you can kind of do that automation. And then social media marketing automation, again, taking a look at Zoho Social and how you can kind of automate your overall social media. Retargeting. So if you're using Google Ads, you want to do some basic retargeting, taking a look at that. SMS marketing, and then CRM marketing automation, which in the Zoho world, basically it can become the center hub that drives all of these marketing automation practices. But all in all, there's some really good tips in here, and how to get these things set up, and an article well worth reading.
Yep. So, I mean, it covers just a ton of different kind of pieces of the puzzle. Pretty quick read as far as some of HubSpot's longer docs go. I know some of the ones that we've covered recently have been up, 15, 20 minutes. This one's probably, 8 or 10 minute read. So pretty manageable to fly through here and get some of the high level tips and tricks for marketing automation.
And over on Zenatta.com, not a lot this week. Our director of marketing is gallivanting around the country on vacation, and some other stuff happened. So some things fell through the cracks a little bit, but we do have a couple great guides that were found, and they both happen to be Zoho people guides. So I like these a lot. The first one is, understanding work, a guide to performance management. And it's pretty nice document all the way around. If you take a look at it, it's great little HR, 16 pages, kind of step you through all of those kind of things. And then the other one is increasing workforce productivity and efficiency with timesheets. So it's really kind of a step-by-step on how to use timesheets within Zoho people as well. And it's a powerful application. We're starting to implement it more now lately and training people up on it and getting going. And
we actually have someone right now getting, basically fully certified and all the different bells and whistles in there. I think one of the cool ones, one that is definitely worth taking a look at, is that guide to performance management. Zoho people has been really committed to improving kind of the appraisal and goal setting and performance management tools in there. We've helped one of our clients out who kind of set a lot of this up for their team, and they're very slick, right? I mean, you can automate all these different types of things to just basically schedule out everyone's reviews. You can set goals, track progress against goals. It's a really cool tool. And that type of stuff is super important when you have, teams of people. If there isn't that goal that they're working towards, you start to lose some of your employee retention. So super important stuff, because at the end of the day, a company is just a group of people. So, you got to make sure that you've got the right tools in place for that.
Yes. In our continued effort to find all of this material and kind of put it in one spot for you. So, but these are good guides, and really a nice job. Kudos for Zoho for putting those together. All right. So our application of the week, we actually talked about this on episode 87 back in March. But I had a chance to talk with the CEO this week, and this product is called SoapBox, and it's a meeting agenda software that plugs directly into Google Calendar. It also integrates with Slack and Outlook and Microsoft Teams. More and more that I use this software, I just absolutely love it. If you're watching us on YouTube, it's basically when you create a meeting inside of your calendar, you have the ability to go ahead and make it a SoapBox meeting. And if you do that, when you open the SoapBox, you can see all of the various agenda items that you have that you're going to discuss. You can easily add items. You can go into that. You can create next steps, and then those create tasks for you. You can attach files. You can assign it to people in the organization. There's a lot of interesting integrations we're looking at with this as well. But, you're in a calendar, you're basically making some quick comments, or maybe you just want to jot down some quick agenda items and you want to share them out with everybody. That's the other thing. You can quickly share this entire agenda with everybody that's invited on the call, and people can add things to it and go through it. Tyler, you and I use this kind of on our daily morning debriefings to kind of go through what's going on. It's just a cool little application, and I was just really impressed with the progress they've made in the last 6-7 months on this thing. It's just come such a long way. So if you didn't check it out when we talked about it in March, or you just started listening to the show, this is one of those that I felt really deserved a second look.
And it's a super powerful tool, both for your internal meetings or, meetings with clients, just to make sure that there is that kind of clear agenda and goal for the meeting.
Yeah, and this is one I think I want to look at doing something for some sort of marketplace integration app on this, because I think from the, adding the agenda to client records and potentially adding follow-up tasks into the CRM, I think there's a lot of really interesting things we can do there, and it's pretty slick. So kudos to the team over at SoapBox. Hey, and then our tip and trick of the week. This is a wild one. I don't know if you had a chance to look at this or not, but create custom shapes using Boolean operations in Show. So I saw the title and I just had to kind of look at this, but you basically can take two shapes. So in this case, we're saying a circle and kind of a star, and you can use the Boolean command union and it's going to join them together. Or you can do the same thing and do subtract, and it's going to take the star out of the middle of the circle, or intersect is going to mush them together. Anyway, it's crazy, but it's pretty cool. So it's just kind of this tip and trick on how to kind of do it bit by bit. But Zoho just cracks me up with some of this stuff, man. This is pretty wild, though. And there's a nice little video and a tutorial, and you basically can just kind of go in and do these nifty little Boolean functions and create really cool little images. And the person if you watch the video, they're doing it so darn quick, like creating a cloud with an arrow, creating a person. I mean, just all kinds of great stuff. And I have to give them credit. Zoho Show, I mean, we use it for our webinars, and we probably need to start using it for this daily show, because it's a really powerful presentation tool, I think.
Yeah, and this is just a very slick little way to basically create some of the custom iconography that you might want to have in any of your presentations, just building off of any of their set of shapes. So very, very cool, kind of fun to play around with in Zoho Show.
Yeah, great stuff. Something like one of those unexpected things. I'm like, wow, that's cool.
Why not?
Why not? All right, guys, and that's a wrap. If you got any questions or comments, head over to crmzen.com and click on Drop Us a Line, or just go ahead and send us an email over at info@crmzen.com.
And on the website is where you'll find complete episodes as well as show notes with links to the stories we discussed today. You can also follow us on your favorite social media platform and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app, as well as on YouTube. We'll see you next Monday.